Hey, Rob.
Hey, how are you?
Very good. Thank you so much for joining and chatting here.
Thanks for having me.
Very good. So, number one, I love the title of your new book, "How to Retire Before Mom" or "Retire Before Mom and Dad." So, did you choose that, or was that like a publisher decision?
So that was that. It took me 5 years to come up with that title, believe it or not. The title, it started out Money Math, the simple numbers behind a lifetime of financial freedom. That was the first title. And someone pointed out that not a lot of people like math, even though I do, but it's not like it's complicated math. But that's what it started out as. And sort of the focus was the power of compounding and how you can make it work for you. Not just in thinking big picture, but in like the day-to-day kind of stuff. And then it changed to the seventh level, and that's because I talk about the 7 levels of financial freedom in the book. So I call it the seventh level, but that seemed too, I don't know, obscure. And ultimately, I changed it to Retire Before Mom and Dad because even though it really is sort of, I think, applicable to about anyone, my hope was that younger folks would read it. It's hard at least when I graduated from college, all this stuff wasn't the main thing on my mind. Although people my age, when we look back, we wish it would have been, right? So that was sort of the goal of the title. We'll see how well that works, but
It's definitely catchy. It just it feels like it might resonate differently with different groups. Just coming from an Asian American background, a lot of my friends are second generation with immigrant parents, and the notion of retiring before your hardworking parents, just that might rub some folks the wrong way.
yeah, right. Well, and I
Culturally,
understand
yeah.
that, but I will say that a lot of people who are buying the books are parents giving it to their kids, which I think is kind of funny.
Oh, nice. Oh,
Right.
very, very good. Yeah.
They don't want their children to sort of suffer the way they did, or they want them to, if they had their finances in order, they want their children to have their finances in order. Because the book really doesn't push early retirement. It really promotes early financial freedom, right? I mean, I could retire now and I still work at Forbes.
And I definitely talk about you
Yeah.
as the man who's already retired twice. I love that saying, by the way.
Right. Yeah. So
So let's get into a little bit about your background, so we can kind of understand your point of view and how you came to these, perspectives. Where'd you grow up?
So I grew up in Ohio, in Columbus. I'm an Ohio State Buckeye fan. So far, we're doing okay this year. We'll see.
I was born in
And,
Cincinnati, by the way, so cool.
Oh yeah, good.
Nice.
My mom was from a town called Portsmouth, not far from Cincinnati, and grew up in a very middle class kind of home. At the time, my mom had not gone to college or hadn't finished. Parents divorced, remarried, sort of a blue collar working family kind of deal.
Are you retired before your mom and dad? Is that whole kind of
Well,
true to
so my childhood. So there's a slightly longer answer to that question. So my parents divorced and remarried. My father died in a car accident when I was 12. Right. So he was only 39. I quote unquote retired. I'm putting that in air quotes because, like I said, I still work at Forbes. We can talk about that story. But my mom actually was a teacher, and she retired from teaching, but she still substitutes 2 or 3 times a week. So I guess we're both sort of retired and then not retired. Retired and then went back to work.
The whole notion, sorry to go off on a tangent, but the whole notion of retiring, this sort of lust for it, or I guess this desire for unlimited idleness, I just think people don't realize that that's not sustainable. You need to do something.
Yeah, what I wanted was unlimited freedom. And frankly, even that's still a struggle. It's not as easy as you think. When you're working and you're commuting and, it's certainly, my life today is certainly much better than my hour-and-a-half commutes into Washington, D.C. 10 years ago. No question about it. But it's still a fight to figure out what kind of freedom you want.
All right. Do you have children?
Yes, grown. One is a Marine, and one is in the psychology field, and they're both in their mid-20s.
Do they have they started, I don't know, funding their Roths? Are they listening to you? I mean,
Well, I'm going to email them when this podcast comes out, and hopefully they'll listen to you and the show. I don't know. Our son does pretty well. He's been saving in his 401k.
okay, good.
He has access to the TSP as well.
Nice.
And our daughter actually can be a really good saver, but we've still got some work ahead of us. I'll leave it at that.
I mean, if you max out, I did the math once. If you max out your, like, let's say your Roth contributions from 18 to 30, just those 12 years, by the time you're 60, you're a millionaire, you know? I mean, theoretically,
exactly. I mean, it's the numbers start to compound. It's crazy.
Yeah. So listen to your dad, please.
But the thing is that for a lot of people, and I do get this, that's the hardest time to max out. I'm not saying it gets necessarily easy. Depends on in the individual, but I think it's hard for 22, 23, 24-year-olds to do that.
No, I agree. So that's why I think this would be like a first world problem, but parents who want to help their kids out, don't pay their cell phone bills, fund their Roths, you know?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Okay. So let's talk about your career. So this I find fascinating because I don't know if you know, I'm also an attorney, but you did start out as a practicing attorney?
Yes. Yeah, so I graduated from law school in 92, went to a firm called Winston & Strawn, which is a Chicago-based firm. I was in the D.C. office.
One of the partners there was my ethics adjunct professor in law school.
Who was that?
I actually don't remember his name, but he was very good.
In Chicago?
No, in New York.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I was there 10 years. I actually made partner
after
8 years, which is the standard track, and then quit. And went in-house for a couple of years. That didn't really work out. I didn't like it. But then I went to sort of a quasi-government agency, the Public Company Accounting Oversight Board, which almost no one has heard of. They regulate the auditors of publicly traded companies. Okay. And then I went back to Winston & Strawn to defend auditors of publicly traded companies. I just flipped sides. And that's a thing to do in D.C. And then I retired from law in 2016.
So when you say you retired from law, I'm trying to make sure we understand each other. Does that mean that you reached the point where you had a vested pension, or you just wanted to stop being a practicing private attorney? I mean, what do we mean there?
Well, I could afford to retire. So at that point, we had no debt. I still owned a website that I had started. I've since sold it. Right. So that was generating income. And so, and also I'd gone part-time as a lawyer, I think beginning in 2013. So I wasn't making much money. In fact, I joke that my secretary truly made more money than I did my last few years, but I was only working 200, 300, 400 hours a year.
Were you doing, I guess, were you of counsel at that point? Is that how that worked? Gotcha.
I was of counsel. Yep. And I was defending auditors in investigations brought by either the SEC or the PCAOB. Yeah.
That's interesting. So that was work that you were able to do on a part-time basis. Did you have good fleshed out paralegal staff, or how did that work? Or associates, I guess?
Well, so when you're dealing with a big case, it would be full-time. There's no way you could work part-time. And I had some of those. Right. But when I got to 2013, I started taking just small cases. So small accounting firms, audit firms. And that's very easy. It's very manageable with a very small team. And it doesn't take the kind of, billable hours you would expect from Winston & Strawn. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you mentioned, I want to drop the name Dough Roller. Is that okay to talk about that?
Sure. Absolutely. So
it started out as a blog, and I do believe you're still working on the podcast. Is that right?
Right. Yeah.
But let's start with the blog. Yeah.
Yeah. So I started Dough Roller in 2007. It wasn't a business. I wasn't trying to make money. It was just a hobby kind of thing. Mm-hmm. That's how so many of these stories always started. That, it was just a hobby. I didn't really think about it, but it became clear pretty early on that you could make some money. I didn't know how much, but that you could make some money. And after 2 or 3 years, I knew I could make full-time money. I could make money, that was matching what I was making in the law, and then maybe even more.
Oh, wow.
So, by the time I retired in 2016, we'd paid off all our debt, and, it was a pretty kind of easy choice, frankly. And then I sold Dough Roller in 2018, including the podcast. Mm-hmm. Although I still record the podcast.
So rolling back to the blog, just my personal curiosity, how were you monetizing? Was it ad revenue? Was it affiliate links? If you're okay with sharing that information.
Oh yeah, it was both. Okay. I mean, if you look at the numbers, by far the majority of the revenue was from affiliate marketing, affiliate links. Right, but there were some display ads. I never did much in the way of sponsored content, and didn't like that approach.
I mean, the content would lead itself to some really high, I guess it's CPC or not for affiliates, but anyway, high value affiliate links because of the financial space you were in, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't, of course, I got lucky, I guess. I didn't know any of this when I started the blog, but yeah, the personal finance investing niche is extremely valuable. I'm probably certainly one of the most valuable, if not the most valuable.
So what made you decide to sell? Was it that you were ready to hang it up, or was it an offer you couldn't refuse, or some combination of those?
It was more the latter. I didn't put it up for sale. Someone reached out to me, and then I got another company interested. So they sort of bid against each other.
Nice.
And I just got an offer that I couldn't justify not taking it. And there was part of me, when I quit the practice of law, 8 years, you're working your butt off, you make partner, then 2 years later I quit. And of course I ended up going back to Winston, but I had a great relationship with Winston and Strawn. But I kind of felt like I just didn't want to do that my whole life. I wanted to try other things. And I think there was the same kind of motivation when I sold Dough Roller. I wanted to try something else. Now, some people would keep it and maybe turn it over and let someone else run it. And that would have been another option, and then still go do something else. But I found it hard to pull myself away from it in that kind of arrangement. So I think it was sort of the same motivation. I wanted to try something else.
Well, I want to just roll back for 1 second and make sure I give a reality check to anyone who's listening. I have a lot of friends who are attorneys who might be thinking, time for me to start a blog and do what Rob did. You started in 2007 and you sold in 2018. But in between there, I mean, at what point did it become, how many years did you put in before it looked like it might actually be profitable enough to be something to look at? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So when I started, it's good. The reality check is good. When I started, I was up 7 days a week at 5 a.m. And I would work from 5 a.m. to 7:30. Then I'd get ready for work, Monday through Friday, get on the subway here in DC, work on the subway, work at lunch, and work at night. So, and as I look back, frankly, I don't even know what motivated me to do all that. I was really motivated. Honestly, I don't know why. And it was probably not, well, I would say by 2000, so I started in the middle of 2007. I would say by 2009, certainly by 2010, I knew that it was going to have a significant and positive impact on our finances.
2 to 3 years out, which is, from what I hear, like a good rule of thumb, whether or not, any business is going to take off or at least survive or not. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's true in the online space as well, unless you've got a whole bunch of money to throw at it. But I didn't. I literally spent $10 on a domain. WordPress is free. I got a free theme, figured out how to get it up and running and started writing content. So
let me just give you my little thanks, by the way. One of your episodes was the inspiration for me to start self-publishing. And I have a nice little side self-publishing business or portfolio, whatever you want to call it. The Mike Piper episode. Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
I haven't seen Mike in years, but yeah, he published a number of books on Amazon, self-published them, and they still do great today.
Yeah. I haven't had the pleasure of meeting him, but he was so forthcoming on your episode. I reached out to him. He's been really helpful over email, and it's been great.
Oh, that's great. That's good to hear. Yeah.
Cool. So how did you go from post Dough Roller to Forbes, or was there overlap there?
No, well, yes and no. I've been a contributor at Forbes for, 5 years maybe. And after I sold Dough Roller, I reached out to my editor and I said, I've sold Dough Roller, just letting you know. I'm going to keep writing, and since I'm not running Dough Roller anymore, I might write a couple more articles a month than normal. And she called me back 2 days later and said, well, why don't you help us manage some personal finance content on the site that we're going to launch? And at first I wasn't all that gung ho to do it. I mean, I just sold my business, and it's like, now I'm going to, get a job that I don't know. But then I thought, the experience of working at Forbes, that could be something that would be interesting, and I could learn some things. And so, I took the job. I mean, I work from home. It's very lifestyle friendly. I work from home, we're in the middle of the day, and I can take a break and have this conversation with you, for example. And so that was about a year and a half ago. So we'll see kind of where it goes, but I've enjoyed it so far.
I think I want to make sure you appreciate what you have here, only because most people have these daydreams of the I mean, most people have the I quit daydream, but then let's talk about the I retire daydream. But you had it twice in 2 years. I mean, that's amazing.
But you know what happens? Like, as an analogy, you buy a new home, let's say, and maybe it's it's a nicer home, and like the first week is like, wow, I can't believe this is mine, and look at all this space. And 6 months later, it's just the house you live in.
Yeah,
it stops being special. Yeah, and I think one of the tricks in life is to not lose that specialness in whatever it is for you. And that's not easy. I can't pretend to tell you I've figured that out. Same thing with a car. You get that new car and it's clean and you love it. But, a year later, it's, McDonald's bag is in the front seat and, or maybe it's not that bad, but, it's just a car. And so, the lifestyle that I have now is, in my mind, 1 in a million. But after a while, if I let it, it loses its specialness. And so that's always a fight and a struggle for me.
Yeah, I did read somewhere that within 3 months of retiring early, and I want to get into that in a second, you've spent whatever, a decade or 15 years scrimping and saving to achieve this, let's call it fire or whatever you want to call it, moment. But within 3 months after you are officially retired, it's like you get this huge bump in happiness initially, and then it plateaus. Yeah, I mean, I read that somewhere. Yeah.
Well, the secret is people sometimes describe early retirement as, you scrimp and you save and you sacrifice so that you can have this dream life, whatever, 20 years later. Sure. The folks that are actually living it have a totally different that perspective is the perspective of people who that's just not for them. I think the people that actually live it don't feel like they're sacrificing at all. Yeah. Now, from the outside looking in, someone else might say, oh, you're sacrificing because you don't ever go out to eat, or you only go out once a week, or, you don't take expensive vacations, or whatever the case may be. But the people that choose that kind of lifestyle don't feel like they're sacrificing at all.
So I do want to dive into a couple of these, I guess, current buzzwords, whether it's FIRE or minimalist or frugal. And I got to just kind of disagree with you on that. I mean, one of these guys, I mean, literally brags about living as close to the poverty line as possible. To me, I mean, that is by definition, some sort. There's got to be some level of sacrifice there,
So I don't know who that is, but let me ask you: is he miserable? Is he unhappy?
He doesn't come off as miserable. No.
Right. So you and I might reject that. Just like Mr. Money Mustache, everyone's heard of him. Yes. He's supposedly, what do you say, 25,000 a year he lives on? I have no desire to live on 25,000. None. No. But he's different. We're just different, right?
Sure.
And that's okay. But for him, at least from everything I've read, and I've met Pete a number of times, he's very happy and content. So it works for him. Cool. Yeah.
So, do you have you written about the FIRE movement? I mean, I don't want to dive too deep into your current book just because I happen to agree with everything you've written. So it just feels repetitive to me.
It's funny. The book doesn't actually mention the term FIRE at all. It's not really a FIRE book, although it goes into the math. I've written some about the FIRE movement. I never saw myself as part of it, which may seem odd since, I reached financial independence at a relatively young age, notwithstanding the gray hair. But, to me, it's just, spend less than you make and invest it wisely. And the more delta, the bigger the gap between what you make and what you spend, the better, as long as you can, you're happy, right? And part of the trick is figuring out what really makes you happy. So I think a lot of people spend all kinds of money thinking it makes them happy, and it really doesn't. If they actually were to do away with a lot of this stuff for a month as an experiment, they'd probably find out, I'm not actually as unhappy as I thought I would be if I hadn't had all of these things or spent all of this money on whatever. They could run an experiment and decide, no, I've got to have 3 lattes a day. That's just, I cannot be happy without it. That's fine. But I think we think these things will make us happy. That's what it was with the law. I thought, I'm going to be partner. Everyone strives to be partner. That's just the goal. And then, and I'll be happy. And I got there, and it wasn't that I was unhappy. But it was like, life is really no different than when I was an associate. I mean, I've got a slightly bigger office, a slightly bigger paycheck. I'm not fundamentally happier. I just wasn't. And it was like, that was really the start of my change. That was very eye-opening to me. It's like, you know what? It turns out I'm not good at knowing what makes me happy. I'm not good at it. And I shouldn't assume that I know.
How long had you been targeting partnership?
Well, I guess since I was an associate, I mean, since I joined the firm.
8 years. Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's an 8-year track. That's you either make partner for the most part or you leave. And yeah, I wanted that, pat on the back, that trophy to put on the shelf. I made partner. I've even got something over here, the little thing. When I made partner, they gave me a little stand thing. I still got it in my office. Just doesn't mean as much to me now. But I really thought, okay, that's it and good. And it's like, yeah, all right, get back to work. Well, this isn't quite what I thought. It's like, it was like being in an 8-year pie eating contest and learning that first prize was more pie. It just wasn't quite what I thought it would be.
Well, compare that feeling to how you felt when you realized you were financially able to or secure enough to, let's say, your first retirement from Winston & Strawn. Yeah. How do those two feelings compare? Yeah.
So in terms of like getting up in the morning and really excited about what I was doing, it was running Dough Roller.
Nice.
Without question, which may bring it in, why did you sell it? But, part of the reason is I can still do other things that generate that same excitement, right? It doesn't have to be that specific website. But that I can remember going to bed thinking, I can't wait to fall asleep, because then it's morning time, you wake up and I can get working on it again. Part of it was just building a business, but that was what excited me the most.
At the peak, how large was your staff for Dough Roller?
Let's see. When I sold, so most of them were contractors, but I had probably a half a dozen writers. I had sort of a couple of editors, and then I had someone who managed all of the advertising. And then on the technical side, I either did it myself or would hire people, as needed to deal with technical issues.
Was it ever a problem running a business on the side while you were employed at a firm? Yeah.
It would be, but not this kind of business, right? It's not like I had customers demanding of me, right? So I could just let the site go for a week, not publish any new content, not do anything with it. And it wasn't as if, a customer was going to start complaining. Right. Yeah. I mean, it's a perfect kind of business to run on the side. It's from your home. Capital requirements are minimal, and you can always put it aside for a few days or a week or whatever if you need to.
Do you still write for Dough Roller?
No.
Why do you continue podcasting for them but not writing? How did that shake out?
So the podcast was the one thing that was really that I identified with, that people came to the podcast because it's me. Versus the content. I had a whole bunch of different writers writing content, and I enjoy doing it. So, in fact, I'm going to be starting another podcast at the beginning of the year on a different topic. It's on building online businesses. A good friend of mine who actually sold to the same company, Larry Ludwig, who owned Investor Junkie. He sold his site to the same company. And so he and I are starting a show about how to build online businesses. So I really like podcasting, and I know I'll do more of it even beyond that. And I felt a connection to the Dough Roller group, and I didn't want to leave that.
Do you have a title for that new show? That sounds awesome.
Right now it's the 404 guys. I want the subtag to be Breaking the Internet since 1997, but I don't think Larry signed off on that yet.
All right.
But yeah, it's the 404 guys show.
And you guys are going to do a conversational format? How do you plan on doing it? That sounds great.
Conversational. We'll probably interview some folks from time to time. But my goal with the show is not for it to be like 60,000 foot kind of stuff, but literally, let's roll up our sleeves. This is how you build an online business. Whether you're talking about how to format an article for SEO, how to find good affiliate marketing opportunities, how to track your sale, whatever, to be very detailed. That's my goal with it. In fact, we're recording our first episode later today, although we're not going to release them until I think January 1st.
All right, that sounds good. I want to make sure I make a note somewhere to link to that, or just to help people find that, because it sounds like it'll be amazing.
Thank you.
That's pretty much all I had. I mean, this has been really interesting, and I actually didn't think your background was so heavy on starting an online business, but it's actually where I'm actually most interested as well. So I was really pleasantly surprised to learn more about that.
Yeah, it was a big part of getting where I am today, and it was a lot more fun. I mean, I enjoyed the practice of law, but the online business was a lot more fun. I got to be honest.
You're preaching to the choir, man.
Yeah, right.
Okay, Rob, you know what? I want to be respectful to my audience's feedback to keep it under a certain time here.
Yeah.
So
sure.
I'm going to let you go. Everyone check out the book, Retire Before Mom and Dad. It's available on Amazon. Really great read. I read it cover to cover, and I happen to agree with pretty much like 95% of what's in there, if not 100%. So definitely pick up a copy. Rob, thanks again for coming on the chat.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun.
All right, thanks. Take care, everyone.